What is the biggest roof leak that you've ever seen?
Well, it's fortunately not been a roof leak that I created, but I've definitely seen uh, everything: insulation, drywall, roof decking, even framing of the house was totally compromised. An
Framing.
entire the entire wall, actually. It was actually in Savannah, and it was in transition for an older house. And from the outside, it didn't look that bad, but then we did some more investigating, and it was pretty bad. And yeah, it was a really big deal. Fix your
The
roof,
framing.
otherwise,
How does
literally
that happen?
the wall was about to fall out of the house, and then
Oh, wow.
that back kitchen area would have just fallen in. Yeah,
Is it a weight
and truth,
bearing wall?
yeah, the load bearing walls were just like totally rotten. But it's because from the outside, it's a very old house, but it was just you gotta take care of your roof. And they had, unfortunately, they had a bunch of chuck and trucks come out and try to fix these roof leaks for years and years and years. And it's just like, you gotta do it. Like, they wouldn't tear off the roof. First of all, they had 2 or 3 layers of shingles. That's number one problem. Then they just didn't ever hire like a real professional who knew what they're doing. And it's really unfortunate because now, you know, it's a very small roof, probably about a $12,000 roof. Now it's a easily $100,000 job, easily.
Wow.
So that's a good example, folks.
But you
Of
did replace it?
We did not.
Oh,
They
you haven't.
they It was a old family home in Savannah, and they have done nothing. I think they're just going to let the house just fall over. Truthfully, the mother is going to go into a nursing home, and they're just going to let that roof cave in. Unfortunately,
Wow.
that's the that was
That's
last year.
crazy. Yeah, so that's what happens when you just keep pushing the roof off and off and off.
Also, be safe, people, because I was on that roof and you
Oh, the
couldn't
roof that
tell. Well, I mean, I was. It didn't fall in at the moment, but it was impossible to tell from just outside looking
outside.
in.
Yeah.
Even inside, you couldn't tell. And I was standing on that roof. I was like, I have to get off
How
this roof.
were you able to tell that the wall was rotted then? Just cut open the
Well,
drywall?
it just took some more time there. We just took some more time. We figured it out. Then they got some more information from the homeowner, and it was, there you go. We figured out,
Yeah.
oh, this is all messed up. And then came around to the certain section. She's like, yeah, we had this tarp and that tarp, and it's like, oh no, this is bad.
Hmm. Man. Was it one of those situations where it's like, okay, obviously this family is struggling a little bit, or was it like a family that should have been able to pay for it and they just kept putting it off?
It was a great example of somebody who's in the middle class who could have just taken care of this with somebody who is capable of doing this with a really good reputation, like hiring a really there are a few different companies that before we moved here that could have taken care of this the right way, and they just kept choosing to not see the value in those companies. And they ended up with a 10x problem, 10x cost problem. So
Yeah.
yeah, that
Would you say
situation
that's
just,
on the homeowner, or would you say it's on the roofing companies for not being able to communicate the value properly?
it's a little bit of both. um I mean, at the end of the day, we can't convince people, we can't show people the value of, like, that your house is. I mean, I tell people this all the time. Hey, you have a leak. I see that there's some surface mold here. Your house is not gonna fall in. And like every time I say that, there's like a sigh of relief from the homeowner. Well, if it was me years ago, I'd be like, hey, your house is gonna fall in. I would have told them that. And then that's kind of on the roofer's side for not saying that and not emphasizing that enough. And then it's kind of on them. I mean, now we talked about this last week and other for weeks, is financing. Financing is a deal now that you're just going to have to offer. If you don't, and that's kind of on the roofer, is that if they don't offer financing, then they can't fix most people's problems now.
Yeah. Yeah, this is interesting. So like I'm just trying to think, like would you consider that house a good lead or a bad? Like in general, if you well, I mean obviously you got that lead because you ended up going to that home. But, you
Mm-hmm.
know, looking back on that now, like you went, and then of course now the situation is it's kind of too late. Like you said, they're just going to let it cave in. But if you had gotten that lead, you know, 2 years ago, would you have gone to the house and said, like, what would have been your walking away from that appointment? Would you say, oh, that was a terrible lead? That was a good lead. I just couldn't convince them of the value. What would have been your analysis of that as a lead from a marketing perspective?
So we get a lot of leads just like this, where a homeowner has either had a couple estimates, got a sketchy feeling from a chuck in a truck, or they've done these like band-aid repairs, either short term, medium term, long term, and then we get to solve the problem later. That happens a lot. It's been happening for years, just how we positioned ourselves in the market. Now that's on us for not positioning ourselves a way that we're accessible to everyone. We've positioned ourselves as like, we market really well. We have wrap trucks, that kind of thing. And so people they have a perception that we're going to be more expensive because we are, but we fix the job the right way and we actually warranty it. So it's hard because we get into that situation a lot, and I would still consider it a good lead. But I wish we were the first one. I wish we cracked the code on getting customers to call us first, and then
Yeah,
we'd be able to, instead of third or fifth.
Yeah, that's interesting. What I'm trying to think from a marketing perspective. So you're putting money into into marketing, whether it be your SEO, Google ads. I mean, even the money like putting your wraps on your trucks, that's expensive, and that does contribute to cost per lead. So all these leads are one way or another you're having to pay for them. And so when you're generating leads, from my perspective, as a primarily someone with a marketing background, my perspective has always been, let's try to cast a relatively wide net and get as many leads as possible. And then that gives you as many opportunities as possible to turn those into sales. And you're going to have to pre-qualify them. You're going to have to work with those leads, and you're going to have to figure out which ones are good, which ones are bad. But it's better to get, 20 overall leads than a smaller number of leads that are, what I have always struggled with whenever working with clients on marketing in the marketing realm has been that, hey, I only want the good leads. Don't get me any bad leads. And it's like, that's not really how marketing works. We can put information out that tries to communicate who you do and do not want to work with. And then we can put things like different lines in your form, pre-qualification questions. But at the end of the day, you're going to get good leads and you're going to get bad leads. That's just how marketing and sales works. And then B, it is better for you to get 20 leads and have half of them be good and half of them are bad than us try to over pre-qualify on the marketing end and then only get you 5 good leads. If we get you the 20, this is just my perspective as a marketer. If we get you the full 20, you might be able to get 10 good leads out of there. If we go super, super aggressive on the pre-qualification and like your lead forms on your website, then we may only be able to get you 5, right? You're leaving those other 5 good leads on the table by not being willing to pre-qualify through the full 20.